Uh, uh,
Happy Advocacy Day, everyone, and welcome back to our second virtual Advocacy Day. We want to thank everyone for coming down to Olympia, the last 2 weeks for the Community Living and Employment Day rallies and Live Advocacy Days. We filled the church both weeks and had around 200 people at both rallies. My name is Sean Latham, from Self Advocates in Leadership, or SAIL. My visual description is a white middle-aged man with a red sweater on. I have a picture of the SAIL logo and SAIL members in the background. Today's topic is how we can protect our services that supports families. The family is a key backbone in society, and we must protect the services and programs that helps families support their loved ones. Just a few reminders today. Please use the Q&A box for any questions you have today. It can be found in the More menu, depending on how you are accessing Zoom. We would prefer you only use the chat today, for only the important links and for those that need it for accessibility reasons. We again prefer you use the Q&A for questions, and we encourage you to avoid long discussions in the chat, because they can be distracting. We also need you to click on the globe icon today in Zoom and select if you want to hear today's program in English or Spanish, as this will help with our interpretation services. And it helps all of us hear each speaker clearly. And then lastly, we want to encourage all of our speakers today to speak slower so that our interpretation services correctly relays your words. With that, I will pass it to my two co-MCs Ann and Emily today to introduce themselves. Starting with Ann.
Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayan Elmi. I am the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Coordinator with Washington Multicultural Services Link. I am an East African descendant woman in my late 30s. I am wearing a scarf from my cultural country and a dress underneath. And I'm here, if you guys need any support, like what Sean said, in terms of accessibility, please use your chat. And I'll pass it to Emily when she's ready.
Hi, my name is Emily Rogers. I am the Public Policy Director for the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council. We're excited that you're here and look forward to a great day. Thank you so much.
Emily. And
Next up, we will see a video from Representative Stephanie Barnard from the 8th District, who will be talking about protecting families.
Right, here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stephanie Barnard. It's such an honor to be with you here virtually, to stand with you on DD Advocacy Day here at the Capitol. When we talk about intellectual and developmental disabilities, we have to start with a simple truth, and that is that families are the true backbone of care in Washington State. Did you know that nearly 80% of people served through our state system live with and are cared for by a parent or a relative? More than half of those individuals are adults. Thousands of families are aging alongside their loved ones, often while managing their own health challenges. And they're doing this with very limited formal support, stretching modest services into lifelines that keep their loved ones at home and connected to their communities. And that's just not a statistic. That is real people, real moms and dads, real grandparents, and real siblings. It's families that are rearranging their work schedules so someone can stay home. Families that are losing sleep so their loved one can feel safe. Families that are navigating complicated systems while trying to plan for a future they can't even fully see yet. And they do it all because they love deeply. But love alone isn't enough. Families need support. They need affordable childcare and after-school programs. They need a meaningful day in employment services so that they can work while their loved ones thrive. They need respite so they can rest. They need a stable, well-trained, fairly paid direct care workforce. They need clear information and timely services when the need arises. And they need help planning for the future, especially as parents age and worry about what comes next. And right now, many families are afraid. They're worried about losing eligibility for critical services. They're worried about reductions to already limited supports. And they're worried about losing trusted providers because of workforce instability. Those fears are real. And when families are pushed to that breaking point, the result is not savings. The result is crisis, emergency placements, institutional care, higher costs both financially and emotionally. Supporting families is not just the compassionate thing to do, it's the responsible thing to do. When families feel supported and are supported, individuals with disabilities thrive in their communities. When families are supported, our workforce is much more stable. When families are supported, we prevent crises before they happen. That's why the work that we do in Olympia matters. It's why we must protect and strengthen the services that allow families to continue caring for their loved ones at home. It's why we should invest in eliminating wait lists, improving training for family caregivers, and making sure that services are accessible, reliable, and dignified. It's why we must continue listening directly to families and individuals with disabilities as we shape this policy. I believe every person deserves to live with dignity, purpose, and opportunity. I also believe families should not have to choose between their own health and caring for someone they love. And I believe Washington can do better together. So today, thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for sharing your stories, and thank you for reminding us that behind every policy decision is a family that's counting on us to get this right. Let us commit to supporting families today so that we can prevent a crisis tomorrow. Again, thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome.
Yay.
Hey, have a great speech. Okay, next up.
Our second speaker today is Kathy Murashi, my co-worker from the ARP of Washington, who will give us an overview of today's topic.
Thanks. So, and some of these statistics she talked about, these are just some slides that tell you the things that she so eloquently shared with us. Again, families are the long-term care supports for individuals with IDD. Again, 78% of people with IDD live with their parent or relative. 56% of adult clients live with and receive care from a parent or relative. That's problematic as the population ages. And we also see that there's more than 2,000 individuals over the age of 40 who are living with a parent. Part of the reason we don't ask families how old the parent is. That DDCS does not ask that. So we don't know exactly how many. So they look at the age of the person. But we also know that that's not always reflective of the age of the parent. So that's just a way to get to that statistic. And again, where people live, most of them live in the community. So 99% of our folks live in the community. And then again, 78% live with a parent or relative. This is really interesting. This chart shows where our waiver services, and you know that the IFS waiver and the Basic Plus waiver are really where people who live at home, or for people who live at home. There's a few people on the core waiver, and then the children's intensive in-home behavior support. That's also an in-home waiver. But you see here, the average amount spent on folks on the IFS program per month is $143. That's a very small investment in families, just so people get a little bit of a break. The Basic Plus waiver, which adds employment, and that's a big piece, and some other, and respite is a separate service. The average amount is just over $1,000 a month. These are not huge amounts. That does not include personal care, so that's a bigger chunk. But you got to remember that personal care is not a DDCS service. It's a community first choice. So this is within developmental disabilities, community living services. So that's just, again, we just modestly invest in families. The SIBS waiver for kids, it's a higher amount, but you can see even that compared to the other costs, compared to the core waiver, which is about $11,000 a month, and such. So it just shows you the rate about the investment in families. And again, the things that families need: affordable, accessible childcare and after-school programs, adequate funding for supports that give people things to do while their family members work, which provide financial stability to the families, occasional break from caregiving. They need some respite, reliable network of trained care providers, timely and easy to use services. Wouldn't that be great? And information and support. And we'll hear from some folks today that do that work. And assistance navigating systems. Again, we'll hear from some folks that do that important work. And again, our aging families, we really need the support to be able to plan for the future, because as parents and family members, we need assurance that the things are going to be in place when we're no longer there to provide care. So, okay, that's all from me.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, I think Sean's got an intro. Just a second.
Perfect.
Happy on this.
Our next two speakers are Tracy Hoppus from Parent to Parent and Jenna Vogel, who will be talking about the need for families to have emotional support, connection, and resources in their life.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Kathy. And what a tremendous message from Representative Barnard. That was just a wonderful introduction to today. So thank you for that as well. So I'm Tracy Hoppus, and I manage the Washington State Parent to Parent Network for the ARC of Washington. And I'm really happy to be with you all today. I'm going to try to talk very little because I have a special guest today with me, Jenna Vogel, a mom, so you'll get to hear a personal testimony. And I also want to say just a shout out to many parent-to-parent coordinators that I see that are on this call, and I'm so happy to have you here as well. So parent-to-parent programs supporting families across Washington State, families that are raising children with intellectual and developmental disabilities and special health care needs. Next slide, please. Just a few details. We're sponsored by the ARC of Washington State. We were established in legislative statute in 2016. We currently have 28 programs and over 50 parent coordinators, including 17 who are bilingual and bicultural, offering multicultural programming for families. We're hosted at the local level by ARC chapters, behavioral health organizations, hospitals, health districts, nonprofits, and more. And at the state level, we receive support from the Developmental Disability Community Services, DDCS, and the Washington State Department of Health Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs program. At the local level, we're supported by many developmental disability county programs and other partners as well. And you can find more by visiting the ARC of Washington's website and looking for the Parent to Parent tab. And also our Facebook address is there as well. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of some parent-to-parent data from our 24-25 year, which includes over 83,000 parent and caregiver connections for support and information and resources. Whoops.
Sorry.
That's okay. We have a lot of individuals on mailing lists across the state, nearly 50,000 individuals on mailing lists. One of the core programs that we offer is the Helping Parent Match program. And last year we facilitated 670 parent matches for information and support. We have a lot of social media followers. We have almost 1,000 trained support parents. And we served nearly 7,000 families who speak a language other than English. So that's just a little data snapshot. We're busy. The 50+ coordinators that are also parents, also raising their own children with developmental disabilities, are working hard to support families within their own communities. And one of those such families, next slide please, Kathy, is Jenna. And so I'm really happy to turn it over to Jenna, who will share a little bit about her story and the value of parent-to-parent support in her life and the life of her families.
Hi everyone. My name is Jenna Vogel. Thanks, Tracy. I live in Yakima, Washington. When I personally first discovered the parent-to-parent office at Children's Village, our son was almost 3 years old and had been through early intervention therapies. And I honestly was almost out of air at that point. Jonah was born prematurely at 31 weeks. He weighed 2 pounds, and he spent the first 2 months of his life in the NICU in Yakima. As first-time parents, we just assumed that everything would be smooth sailing after our NICU journey. But of course, life had other plans for our miracle baby. He ended up needing multiple surgeries, including a G-tube placement at age 2. And he is still fully dependent on that for all of his nutrition at 6 years old. The parent-to-parent staff really helped me navigate things when I really didn't understand what to do. It was really after Jonah's level 2 autism diagnosis at age 3 that I was so desperate for support. The parent-to-parent staff helped me navigate state and local resources, of course, for our son. But more than that, I received emotional support and connection to a community who truly saw life through the same lens that we did. And it brought air back into my lungs for the first time in 3 years. It was the first time we truly didn't feel alone in this journey anymore. And I understood how to move forward with all the emotions and the uncertainties that come with autism. I've been so blessed to have had those hands pull me up and carry me through the heaviest times, adjusting to life with a child with special needs who deserves everything that life has to offer. Parent to Parent is far and away the most valuable resource for families like mine that supports not just our children, but our entire family's well-being. Having these amazing people to sit in the path with you and help our family feel whole is worth more than any other medical service that we have encountered. And we have encountered, I think, almost all of them at Children's Village. It's priceless, and it needs our protection and our support at all costs. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to give back by getting involved as a volunteer during events throughout the year, and I'm currently the chair for the Parent to Parent Advisory Board. One of my favorite things, though, has been going through the Helping Parent training and being matched with a mom who has a son with similar circumstances to ours. Being able to really be a peer mentor for her and truly help lift another family from my own lived experience now has just been so amazing. And it's such a unique aspect of the programming that Parent to Parent has available, to be able to have that peer-to-peer connection and support when families feel heard and supported. There's truly nothing that they wouldn't do for their children. So it's such a huge resource to have, and I love it. Love being a part of it. I'm forever grateful for the community I have now, and some of my lifelong friends have, been able to come from Parent to Parent. So I just can't imagine what our life would look like now without this lifeline. Parent to Parent, it's not just putting on fun activities for our kiddos, which is very fun, of course, but it changes lives. It creates lifelong friendships with families like ours. It's the first place a newly diagnosed family should go for every resource and support for each person in the family. And what I know to be true for myself is it's the very last place families want to leave. I'm so very thankful that we have Parent to Parent so close to home, and all that they have done to help my son and my family live life so, so very well. What Tracy has built in Yakima and throughout our state over 25 years is such a gift to me and to my family and our community. And I just wish everyone could feel as supported as our family does, because every family that's raising a child with special needs deserves that. So thank you guys so much, and I really appreciate everything that you do. It's amazing seeing so many people coming together for our kiddos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, everyone.
Now I am going to pass the reins to my fellow MC, Ayan Elmi.
Thank you, Sean. We will have our next speaker will be Christina from Kindring to talk about families needing early support. When you're ready, Christina.
Thank you so much. And can you all see my screen? Thank you. So, first of all, what a perfect transition, and thank you, Jenna and Tracy, for telling your stories. It is since I'm speaking about early supports, your story really resonates with me personally. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Christina Mendieta. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at Kindering, which is a nonprofit early support provider serving King and South Snohomish counties. I use she, her pronouns, and my visual description is sort of a tired looking white woman with straight brown hair. So I have a pretty narrow focus today, but for those who may not be familiar, early support services are like those that Jenna just described, those one-on-one pediatric therapies, mostly delivered in the home for infants and toddlers 0 to 3 years old with developmental delays and disabilities. These are things like occupational therapy, feeding therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, etc. As some of you may know, in Washington State, our special education system is split into 3 parts based on age, just if we're talking specifically about the way it's funded. And so the 0 to 3-year-old system is ESIT, Early Support for Infants and Toddlers. The 3 to 5-year-old system is pre-K, and then the 5 to 21-year-old plus is the K through 12 system. Why am I telling you this? It's because each stage has its own special education funding multiplier. For those of you who have been involved in this sort of journey about the special education multipliers, this will be very familiar to you. But in sort of the ESIT advocacy world, we have been focused for the last few years on making sure that the ESIT stage of special ed is connected to the pre-K stage of special ed, because from 2019 and prior, ESIT and pre-K had the same special education multiplier, and they were actually linked in statute. They were literally one and the same. Then, when ESIT was moved over statutorily from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction over to the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, just nothing changed in terms of the services, but the statute was lifted and moved with the creation of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Those 2 multipliers, the ESIT multiplier and the pre-K multiplier, became delinked. This created problems for the early support for infants and toddlers system, because when the pre-K system got a boost that it absolutely needed, the ESIT system unfortunately got left behind. But last year, we were very excited because advocates were successful after years of advocacy in reconnecting those two multipliers, the ESIT and the pre-K special ed multiplier, which meant that not only did ESIT get moved to the level of pre-K, it also meant that in the future, when the pre-K system gets a boost, so too does ESIT. And that was thanks to Senate Bill 5263 by Senator Peterson. So we were thrilled. Here's the bad news. There is a bill this year. It's agency request legislation by the Office of Financial Management. It's HB 2688. And unfortunately, it would delink those two special education multipliers again. Our concerns, of course, are that, and I want to be clear, this is not in and of itself a cut, but it would most likely cut ESIT out of future special ed multiplier increases, just like it did in the past. And so we in the ESIT community are very concerned because I'll just be very transparent with this group. Kindring, and I know we're not alone, Kindring has been in a deficit budget for many years. And part of that is just because the cost of services continues to increase and the revenues are just not keeping up. And so we're very concerned about this decoupling of the two multipliers because we're simply worried about that going back to the way it was. So you might be wondering, why would the state do this? So I asked, and I was told that essentially, I mean, I think we all know the state is having a historically difficult budget season. And so they are trying to find ways to save money and limit expenses. And I was told that from the state's point of view, at least when I talked to them, that decoupling those two multipliers is one of the only ways to limit future ESIT expense increases. And that's because of something called maintenance of effort. So some of you may be aware that ESIT funding comes from multiple different sources, and one of those sources is federal Part C money, IDEA Part C. And there is a federal statute in IDEA Part C that says the state has to spend the same amount of money on ESIT year over year. Otherwise, it violates that maintenance of effort requirement. And so if that happens, it triggers the Single Audit Act. And the remedy, the federal government has said, is that the state would then have to repay that federal money. The logic being that you can't supplant federal funds. And so it's quite difficult for the state to actually decrease ESIT costs year over year. And so by decoupling the multipliers, this was one way of limiting future costs. I am sympathetic to the challenges of the state budget, but knowing the situation that many ESIT providers are in, knowing how critical these services are for infants and toddlers with developmental delays and disabilities, we just cannot agree that this is a good solution. And so there is a hearing tomorrow morning in appropriations at 10:30. It's appropriations, so there's not a lot of time for testimony, but if folks are looking for an action, I might suggest considering signing in con by the end of the day. Today, Kindring certainly will be speaking against this bill. I am sort of heartened to see that at least as of this morning, we were at about 350 people signed in con, and the only person signed in pro was the agency that is requesting this legislation. And I think it's important for us to sort of show how much we care about the infants and toddlers early support system. And I'll just wrap up by offering a couple of statistics as to why we should protect and preserve ESIT as it is. And so I think the most important point, frankly, is the developmental outcomes for children and the well-being outcomes for children. 85% of brain growth occurs in those first 3 years of life. It is the most active time of brain development, and it's when you can have the greatest positive impact on a child's developmental trajectory. I mean, literally empowering them with skills that will support them throughout the rest of their lives. ESIT services can also be life-saving in many cases. A lot of children come to us, prematurely, coming out of the NICU, which is neonatal intensive care unit, or who are really struggling with feeding, is one example. And so feeding therapies can truly be the difference maker. For little kids who are struggling to feed. And then also you can early identify complex medical needs. And from a budgetary standpoint, I think it's also important to recognize that about 40% of kids who exit ESIT around age 3 don't need additional special education services, which of course saves the special ed system money later down the line, which we recognize is important. We think of ourselves as a very, very wise investment in the whole special education system. And we certainly want to be supportive of the whole special ed system. With that, I just want to say thank you. And if anyone has any questions, you're totally welcome to get in touch with me. I will put my contact information in the chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Christina. And then our next speaker, it is Emily Hall from, I apologize, from the Sibling Support Project. When you're ready, Emily.
Thanks so much. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see my happy bubbles here? Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time today. I'm really excited to be here to present the perspective of siblings, the brothers and sisters of people with support needs who aren't always the first people we think about in that family constellation of caregivers, but are certainly an important piece of the puzzle. The Sibling Support Project is the first national program in the U.S. dedicated entirely to supporting brothers and sisters of people with developmental health and mental health concerns. We started our journey in the late 1970s with a man called Don Meyer, who was then a graduate student at the School of Experimental Education at the University of Washington, who started to think about how a disability or healthcare need really impacts the entire family, including siblings. Don created this amazing program called Sib Shops, which I'll tell you a little bit about today, that now exist literally around the world. And that all began here at the University of Washington. And he created the Sibling Support Project in 1990, first at Seattle Children's Hospital. And then it was at Kindering for many years. And today we're part of a national organization that is completely sibling centered. A little bit about me. This is honestly just a shameless opportunity to show you a picture of my brother, because in addition to being the director of the Sibling Support Project, I'm also a sibling. So there's my older brother, Peter. He's 2 years older than I am. That picture was taken of us in 2010. So I like to joke with him. That was many years ago, many wrinkles and a few pounds. And we were lucky to be invited to attend the 20th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act at the White House. And that was a really special event for us. And Peter, my story and Peter's story is really the story of thousands of siblings across Washington state and millions of siblings across the country. Peter and I are now in our early 50s, just to sort of age ourselves. Our parents have both passed, and I am Peter's person. In addition to being Peter's person, I have a spouse, I'm a mother, and I love my job and want to give as much as I can to my career. And so that's a lot of things to juggle. Oftentimes, adult siblings like myself are referred to as the club sandwich generation. Like baby boomers who are the sandwich generation, we are caring for aging parents and our children, those two layers of caregiving. But we also have that extra layer, right? The bacon. I refer to my brother as the bacon in that club sandwich because we are also caring for our brothers and sisters who are aging right along with us. And as you've heard many times already today, the situation in Washington is what's happening across the country, which is that the majority of adults with disabilities are living at home with oftentimes with aging parents. Caregivers who may be struggling with their own health concerns, and siblings are really often the people who step in to provide caregiving, not unlike myself. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but I definitely bring that perspective to my work at the Sibling Support Project. Over the years, I'm a social worker by training. I grew up on the East Coast, and over the years, was very lucky to be able to connect with Don Meyer and contribute to some of the books created by the Sibling Support Project. In addition to writing books for and about and largely by siblings, we talk to the media every chance we get about why it's important to support siblings, which I'll do very briefly today. We also offer a lot of training and support to organizations that really want to reimagine their role as being a family-centered organization and ensure that siblings are considered and recognized as a very important part of those families that we're supporting. Let's take a look at some numbers. Sometimes when I meet people and I tell them what I do for work, they say, "Oh, that's so niche. Whoa, that's so wonderful. That's amazing that you do that." And when I look at the numbers of individuals with disabilities, not just in Washington State, but around the world, and think about the fact that 80% of all children in the United States alone, including here in Washington State, grow up with at least one brother or sister, it feels a lot less niche, right? Because what we're talking about is thousands and thousands of people. This is just stats for children, up to 260,000 children in Washington State under the age of 18 who have special health care needs. And in addition to that, about 800,000 children in the state relying on Medicaid for coverage. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but I know that 80% of those numbers means that we have a lot of siblings in the state of Washington who need our support. Why? Why is it important to support siblings? Well, first of all, we know from the research that sibling experiences parallel parent experiences, right? Anything we can say about being the parent of a child with support needs, we can pretty much put ditto marks on for siblings. We know that sibling issues are lifespan issues. Preschoolers who are siblings will have some unique concerns. Siblings who are senior citizens will have some unique concerns, and it's important to support siblings throughout the lifespan. Brothers and sisters will have the longest lasting relationship to the person with disabilities, folks, right? Longer than any service provider and probably longer even than parents. Siblings spend a good deal of time together over the course of the lifespan, particularly when they're young and then later in life. Siblings also spend quality time. Siblings are really important social models for children with disabilities. And then last but not least, what I've been talking about in my own situation and in the situation across the country and around the world, siblings really are the next generation of caregivers, and we need to have information and support to be able to step into that role. And we know from a lot of really great research that's been done that many sibling caregivers who do step into the role feel very, very unprepared. So part of my reason for being here today is to tell you that siblings are concerned. We're worried about the futures of our siblings, the future and well-being of our parents, and we want to be part of the picture. We want to be helpful. We want to be partners, but we need the information.
Okay, let me get my free wrapper. Yeah.
I think someone's maybe unmuted.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're telling me to wrap up. Is that correct, Kathy?
You're good. Go ahead. Finish up.
Okay. I won't go into too much detail about SIB shops, but I will close by saying that research, particularly research done here at the University of Washington, indicates that SIB shops have lots of positive outcomes. But the one I want to focus on right now is that third one that says that investing in children and supporting young siblings leads to outcomes that siblings feel more ready and willing and able to serve as caregivers later in life. So thanks for your time today, and we're really happy to have a seat at the table.
Thank you, Emily. Kathy is our next speaker here. Do we know?
Is Jeremy here? I think Jeremy is, I haven't seen his name. Let me see.
Someone joined from a phone, so I want to make sure who that is.
Yeah, Just wondering. I don't see Jeremy or Goltz. Are you here? I think he's not here.
Okay, and then we're going to go to our next speakers, Sandy Gruberg and Michelle Williams, when you're ready.
Good morning. Michelle is out on a family day, so you have me today, but I'm very happy to be here and thankful for the opportunity to speak with you today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sandy Gruberg, and I am here on behalf of the people who you've heard hold up the largest share of our developmental disability system. That's families. And yet family caregivers remain some of the most overlooked voices in disability advocacy. Almost 80%, again, as you've heard today, of individuals supported by developmental disabilities community services live with a parent or a family member. That means most planning, coordinating, and problem solving isn't happening in programs or offices. It's happening in living rooms, kitchens, bedrooms, sometimes bathrooms, coffee shops, and hospitals across our state. Families are the backbone of this system, carrying that weight largely unsupported and unheard and often unpaid. Families know what's broken. As a caregiver myself, I am intimately familiar with what works and what doesn't. Yet when family advocates bring forward policies, our solutions are often dismissed as too costly, too complex, or pushed aside by advocates and lobbyists who don't know our loved ones and will never walk in our shoes. Family-driven legislation is not theoretical, philosophical, or inspiring. You won't see catchy slogans or big white tents pitched on the Capitol lawn. Our proposals are urgent, practical responses to gaps that put real people at risk. And families have shown up year after year, calling legislators, writing emails, giving testimony, and offering solutions that would stabilize households and prevent crises. Some of these asks have been paid labor for parent providers of minors, dayhabilitation and accessible day programs, safety support, access to aggregate waiver funds for community respite, expanded community inclusion contracts, DD specialized adult family homes, incidental personal care and community waiver services, special caseloads, and access to core waivers for aging individuals with aging caregivers. But the legislature in all of these has failed to move. Even without these glaring gaps, DD services are difficult to navigate. Low waiver utilization rates tell us that when families can't access services that technically exist, that's not a family failure. It's a system failure, a policy failure, and an accessibility failure. Families shouldn't need to be lawyers, doctors, social workers, accountants, and English speakers just to access the services their loved ones are eligible for. We need streamlining, simplicity, clear communication, and true accessibility within DDCS. A system with multiple wrong doors and no clear directional map is not a system designed for individuals with IDD or the families who support them. Washington must invest in system navigation support, language access, culturally responsive information, and family-specific advocacy. Family caregivers deserve the same scale of advocacy infrastructure that other DD groups receive. When families understand the system and can advocate alongside their loved one, alongside their community, outcomes improve for everyone. Families continue this work out of love, respect, and hope for the future. But we do get tired. We get overwhelmed. We struggle to remain economically stable, as you've heard. And we are too often outvoiced in spaces where our truth matters the most. Legislatures have the power to change this, but change begins with listening, really listening to the lived experiences of families who are picking up the pieces the system drops. Families need legislators, decision makers, advocates, and the disability community to acknowledge, respect, and truly hear the voices of our loved ones who cannot advocate for themselves. We will keep showing up. Real lives depend on our knowledge and advocacy. But it is time for legislators to show up for us. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. And please keep advocating along with us. Families need your help.
Thank you, Sandy. And to announce our next speakers, I'll pass it to our other co-host, Emily Rogers.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have Hodan Mohammed and Ayan to talk about from Washington Multicultural Services Link to talk about multicultural families' need for support.
On this note, we have Mahad Dahir, my coworker, who's going to be presenting that part. Mahad, go ahead.
Maureen.
All right. Thank you so much, Ayan, and thank you, Emily, for introducing us and our organization. Sabah wa Naksan, everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here in community. My name is Mahad Dahir, or Mahad Dahir, and I am Ayan's co-worker for the Washington, and I work at the Washington Multicultural Services Link organization. I'm the self-advocacy educator over there. And today I want to spend my time here talking about immigrant families with disabilities. I mean, because like they're facing lots of fear, discrimination, and systemic neglect. And these same families want safety, dignity, education, and opportunity for their children, just like any other family. Unfortunately, many families are afraid to go to the Citizenship and Immigration Services offices to renew their citizenship or legal status. And this is due to the fear that parents face when they're being questioned, detained, or separated from their children, even when they are eligible for services and are following the law. Families with children or adults with disabilities face additional barriers, including lack of language access, lack of disability accommodations, and limited support to understand complex systems. Because of this fear, families are avoiding essential services such as legal renewals and appointments because they are critical for stability, employment, healthcare, and education. This fear does not come from wrongdoing. It comes from uncertainty, past trauma, and harmful rhetoric that makes families feel unstable and unsafe and unwelcome. No family should have to choose between protecting themselves and complying with the law. Families are also afraid to take their children with disabilities to daycare or early childhood programs, as they worry about discrimination, safety, and being targeted. Recent events that have been inspired by harmful rhetoric, especially after what happened in Minnesota, have increased fear in immigrant communities, not just in Minnesota, but also here in Washington State and across the country. Entire groups of people are being generalized, stereotyped, and blamed. As a result, families are keeping children at home, missing critical early learning and support services. No family should ever have to choose between their child's care and their own safety. In schools today, many children with disabilities are not receiving the services guaranteed in our individualized education programs, or IEPs for short. Some classrooms go months without a teacher. IEPs are not being implemented. Parents' concerns are ignored, and there's very little to no accountability or follow-up. This is not just an inconvenience, it is a violation of children's civil and educational rights and therefore causes long-term harm to their development and well-being. Children as young as pre-K, especially children of color, are being placed in separate restrictive classrooms instead of learning alongside their peers. This segregation lowers expectations, limits opportunities, and isolates children at the very beginning of their educational journey. Inclusive education should be the standard, not the exception. And it's not just children with disabilities that are being impacted. Many adults with disabilities and immigrant families are sitting at home without employment, job training, or community engagement. They want to work, contribute, and be part of their communities, but are not accessible enough, inclusive. But there are not enough accessible, inclusive programs or pathways to opportunity. This isolation affects mental health, financial stability, and family well-being. We are asking for a safe and welcoming. We are asking for safe and welcoming access to immigration services that are free from bias, discrimination, and racial profiling, accountability for schools to fully implement EEPs, inclusive education instead of segregation, employment and community programs for adults with disabilities, and systems that see immigrant families with disabilities as human beings rather than being a burden. I would like to conclude by saying these families are not asking for special treatment. They're asking for fairness, safety, and the rights already promised to them. And when immigrant families with disabilities are supported, the entire community is strong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Ayan, do you have something to say as well?
No, Mahad was able to speak on our behalf. Thank you, Emily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
No doubt.
So next, we have Therese from Tavon Center, and I'm not even gonna attempt your last name.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name's Therese Vafizadeh, and I am today the very tired parent of a 42-year-old woman who has decided to have cyclical sleep issues. And this part of the cycle is the bad part. So if I stumble over my words, you'll know why. Our daughter is a 42-year-old who has IDD, and which inspired our family to create Tavon Learning Center. The caregiver in the program. As the parent of an adult child who needs total assistance with every activity of daily living, I live every day what so many families across Washington experience. My daughter depends on me for her personal care, her meals, mobility support, medical coordination, communication, everything. And while I'm honored to be her parent and caregiver, I also know firsthand how physically demanding, emotionally taxing, and isolating this lifelong role can be without a strong system of support. Across Washington state, families play this essential long-term care role. As we've all heard throughout the talks today, the majority of people with IDD, adults with IDD, live with their parent or relative. At Tavon, 84% of our members live with a parent or a family member. This means that family members, not paid systems, provide the majority of daily care, emotional support, transportation, medical coordination, and community involvement. I know this reality intimately. And while families do this with love, we must acknowledge the truth. Long-term caregiving is demanding, exhausting, and unsustainable without strong, reliable support systems in place. This is why family supports and high-quality community respite programs are absolutely essential. Respite is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. It gives caregivers like me the time to rest, work, attend appointments, or simply take a breath. For someone like me, caring for a daughter who needs full support, even a few hours of respite can mean the difference between burnout and being able to continue providing the care she deserves. Equally important, respite can offer adults with IDD opportunities to be engaged, active, and included in their communities. Programs like Tavon Learning Center show exactly what high-quality community respite looks like. Tavon provides meaningful day programs where adults with IDD can learn new skills, build friendships, enjoy nature, and participate in vibrant community settings. This benefits both sides of the caregiving relationship. For caregivers, respite means reduced stress and burnout, the ability to maintain employment, renewed long-term capacity to continue to support their loved one. For adults with IDD, programs like Tavon can provide social connection and belonging, skill building and personal growth, and safe, high-quality engagement outside the home. This is why sustained and expanded funding for respite and family supports must remain a statewide priority. With thousands of adults with IDD relying on their families for daily support, Washington must ensure that caregivers are not left to shoulder these responsibilities alone. When we invest in respite and community programs, we are not just supporting caregivers, we are strengthening the entire family, promoting inclusion, and ensuring that adults with IDD have access to the rich, full lives they deserve. As a parent, I can tell you, these supports just don't help families, they keep families going. So I urge you to continue championing policies that expand respite services, increase access to community-based programs, and support the families who form the backbone of Washington's IDD system. Thanks for your time, your advocacy, and your commitment to a more inclusive Washington for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Therese. We really appreciate you coming today. Next on our agenda, we have Tracy Warren with the ARC of King County talking about senior families needing support.
Hi, I am Tracy Warren Lozano. I'm the Future Planning Support Program Manager for the ARC of King County. My main role is to assist senior parents and caregivers in securing the future for their loved ones. But in my opinion, my most important role is as a senior parent myself of adult children, 2 of which are in their late 30s and have disabilities that require lifelong care. I'm here to discuss some of the challenges senior parents face. I'd also like to say that sometimes it does feel odd to talk about this, our children as challenging. We love our kids, we do anything for them, but that doesn't mean it doesn't get hard sometimes. Senior parents and main caregivers of adults with IDD face an overwhelming mix of challenges as they age and as their loved ones age as well. And among them are emotional stress due to anxiety and fear over what's going to happen to their loved one once we as aging parents pass away or for some other reason we are no longer able to provide care. These worries can be a huge source of increased depression. Worry as physical challenges due to our aging start happening. As we age, we may experience arthritis, heart disease, and for some, even dementia. We have decreased stamina as our bodies age. And also, this comes into play as a challenge for continuing, the level of care that our loved one needs. Senior parents may also experience social isolation. Without the support, the parent or caregiver can experience extreme fatigue or burnout, even pushed to their limit due to lack of respite. Financial insecurity also. If a parent or caregiver is living on a fixed income, this also is extremely challenging when trying to meet our loved ones and our own needs. Future planning, though sounds like a perfect fix, is much easier than it is. It sounds so much easier than it is. Just plan for the future. Well, one of the biggest challenges is housing, finding a safe and affordable means of housing for our loved one, especially those on Medicaid or Medicare, can be close to impossible sometimes. And those of us who are senior parents and caregivers of a loved one with IDD experience many forms of stress due to lifelong caregiving. We power through the physical caregiver demands, future planning worry, caregiver burnout, financial concerns, physical and emotional exhaustion, as well as some of us being the sandwich generation, which I was. I took care of my family and I took care of my mother who was in a hospice. And that was tough. So what's needed? What's needed to help alleviate some of the difficulties in this time of a senior parent or caregiver's lives are, of course, respite, caregiving, providing a break so we can take a breath and regroup. This is crucial to physical and mental sustainability. In-home services, assistance with our loved ones' ADLs, activities of daily living, can help the person stay in the home a little bit longer. Housing resources. When I talk about resources, there are resources out there, but accessing them is the challenge. Safe, affordable housing, respite, affordable respite, caregiver support and counseling. Emotional support is crucial in managing stress and alleviating the feeling of isolation. Affordable financial planning for our loved one's future. This is a major source of stress and anxiety for a senior parent or caregiver. Worrying about whether our loved one's basic needs are going to be met is the last thing we as parents or caregivers need to worry about during this fragile time in our lives. As a senior parent and caregiver of my two boys with disabilities, I am sometimes, for the lack of a better word, terrified of what could happen to these boys without me. At the same time, being a senior parent, I'm also experiencing the effects of aging and feeling the decline in my ability to do what I could do 10 years ago. Services are scarce, they're expensive, and they're not sustainable on a fixed income. And those of us who've gone through all the years of raising our children only to be afraid of what's going to happen to them is not anything I wish on anyone, but so many of us are going through this very thing. And too many of us are parenting blindly as we age, not knowing if we're going to be able to secure our or our loved ones' futures. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Tracy. We appreciate your words of wisdom. Next, I would like to welcome Kathy Marahashi back again to talk about the bills of interest.
Thank you, everyone. So let me share my screen with you. And if somebody can put the link to the bill tracker in the chat box, that would be super helpful so you can find this when we're done. So right now we are in not quite halfway through the legislative session. And today is the first really big, what we call cutoff. So up until this point of time, there have been a lot of hearings. The past couple of weeks in what they call in the various committees, the bills are being heard. And then by today, those bills have to be out of committee by 5 o'clock. If they're not out of the committee, most of them are going to die. And so there's a lot. What you're seeing today is they're in committee all day. They're trying to vote to decide what they call executive committee, where they vote out the bills, trying to get those going. And then by Monday at 5 o'clock, they not only have to be out of their, policy committee, they have to be out of the money committees, which are House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means. So there's a lot of action. The legislators are probably going to be working all weekend. And you'll see them working late into the night trying to get these bills where they need to be. There's a few hearings this week, but there's most of our bills are moving along pretty well. Let me tell you where we are. So these are the happy faces, and the preservation of records bill, which would preserve records that are at Lakeland Village, is in second reading. That means it got out of all the committees and it's just waiting there to have a vote on the floor. Let's see, the 2200 is today the 3rd, had an executive hearing yesterday. So we're just have to look and see if that's moving through. That bill is about data that compares across the different residential settings for people with IDD. I think there was a small change amended so to make sure that they use good data across the settings, because sometimes you're comparing apples to apple or apples to oranges, and we want to make sure that they're fairly shared in a fair way. 2319, which renames our residential habilitation centers takes the word school out because they don't provide education. And it's a small change, but that bill's moving along. It's in rules committee to be reviewed to go on the floor. 2350 is also related to the residential habilitation centers with certain federal requirements. That means if there's at the RHCs, if the RHCs get a ding from the federal government, they have to tell the residents and their guardians. And we think that's good. That also is in rules to review. Like I said, some of these are moving along nicely. If this bill's important to you, 1390, repealing the Community Protection Program, it is in 3rd reading. So it's scheduled for a floor vote, but it hasn't moved forward. And if that bill's important to you, we suggest that you maybe write your legislators and say, hey, we need a vote on that bill. Don't let it pass it by, because it's already, I think this is the last vote it needs. It's been a bill that we've been working on for a couple of years, and it just needs that little bit of a push at the end. So if you're Representative Goodman is the sponsor there. If you know him, or if he's your legislator, you might connect with him and say, hey, can you make sure your bill gets through the door? So that's an important thing. 2415, which is about unexpected fatalities at the RHCs. That bill had some questions, and it's probably not moving forward because they don't have enough time to explore the questions and at this point in time. So it'll be probably a bill that comes back. Some happy news. HB 1795, which addresses restraint or isolation of students in public schools and educational programs. This is another bill that's been a number of years in the making. It's kind of been a slow process. It's not everything we want, but it would restrict certain kinds of restraint. It's for schools from using particularly bad forms of restraint, which is good. And it would also restrict districts from building new isolation rooms. And we're not talking about sensory rooms. We're talking about isolation rooms. So districts would no longer be able to build new ones. So it moves us forward. We wish it did some more things, but we can come back with that. Some good news is there was money for some training for districts last year around this issue, but we do support this important step forward, and it's into review, which is good. Okay, here is the bill 2688 that Christina talked about. for about early supports for infants and toddlers that delinks the multiplier. It's a complex topic, but bottom line is we don't think this is a good idea. And if you can sign in con, that would be amazing if that is important to you. Here's the two dental care bills at the RHCs. We don't think those bills are moving forward. One never had a hearing and one has not been scheduled for executive sessions at this point of time. They're 2230 and 6024. These are two bills that are related to supported living, and it's about streamlining monitoring and oversight activities. They did a kind of an audit, and they realized that there's a lot of things that are duplicative and that they're asked to do. The story I heard in the hearing was they had an audit, financial, and they had all the things that they had to prepare for, and they were there for like 3 days, which takes away time from the caring for the person. And then just weeks later, a different agency was asking for the exact same information. And so what they're asking is to streamline it so that they don't have that duplication. It's not about things like APS, that kind of reporting. It's really about finances and other kinds of things that inspections and such. So it's moving along. Both of them are one's in 2 review and then one's in 2nd reading. So that's good. 5680, let's see, it's today the 4th. Tomorrow has a hearing. This would lower the age at which individuals with IDD could receive employment services from 21 to age 20. And the goal is to actually move that down because they think that people should be able to get a job just like other folks do, when they're in high school or after, and when they're ready to do that. We shouldn't have that as a barrier. The good news is it has a hearing in the money committee, so it has until Monday to get out of committee. And they had a very good hearing earlier, which is great. There's a little challenge because it would cost money, and we're hearing from legislators they don't really. Any bills that cost money are kind of not moving forward. So we'll see if that moves forward. But great work on the part of the employment community to move that as far as they can this year, and hopefully, maybe that'll surprise us and it'll get in the budget. This is 6163 is a really important bill for families. This bill put forth by Senator Braun, was quietly put there, would eliminate wait lists for the IFS waiver and would allow the planning for that waiver to be in the maintenance budget, which would be very important over the course of time. It had a hearing on the 20th. We think this would be a really good thing for our, less wait lists. And we know, and the wait lists are not big right now on IFS, but over the course of time, we may see that, especially as we see the budget tightening, that we may see less movement. So we think that this would be a really good thing. If that's important to you, we highly recommend that you ask your legislator or talk to Senator Braun and say, hey, we would really like to see that bill have an executive session. And please move that bill forward. We think that would be a really great thing. 2337, the training requirements for family care providers. That bill, unfortunately, is not going to move forward this year. There has been some promises to work on the issue over the interim. We'll see how that goes. What that bill did was starting in January 2027, family care providers, not parent providers, other family providers would have to take, is it 12 units of continuing ed every year? So we have some concerns about that, but it seems like it's going forward at this point of time. One of the other things that we're just starting to have conversations about is funding, discussion around funding for a plan for DDCS. You know, we know that as families that we've had a lot of Band-Aid approach over the last few years, a lot of reports, a lot of studies, and sometimes we get some money thrown at us, but there's never been a comprehensive plan. So we're starting to discuss whether we could have a plan for DDCS, which we think would be great. If you notice on our bill tracker, those are our priority bills. There are more bills. There's a whole bunch of them on the second page here. If there's others that are important to you, you can go through and look through them. The ones starting this afternoon or after probably tomorrow, we'll pull a bunch of these bills off the tracker because they will have died and they'll get moved to this dead bill section over here. I think the thing that you need to know, I'll stop sharing my screen most, is about the budget. The budgets are going to be coming out in the House and Senate budget should be coming out in the next week or two, and watching for those budgets and seeing what is in them. The governor's budget came out on Christmas Eve, and overall, it didn't look like it made cuts, but there was some reference to beginning in 2028 that his recommendation is to narrow who is eligible for waivers and personal care services. And the modeling shows that the recommendation would drop about between 2,000 and 2,500 people who already receive waiver services, who are on a waiver completely from service, or and about 2,000, 2,500 are people with IDD. There's another about same amount, 2,000 to 2,500 people that are not DDCS clients, but are in the aging population. But we also know that there's a number of people in that number that some people don't receive DDCS. They receive their services on that aging side, even though they have an IDD. So we know that there's others over there, and we're very concerned. This could impact. Most of the people are people that have low support needs, which sounds okay, but for some people, just that little bit of service is what makes them holds their life together. Having somebody to manage their medication may keep them stable, and that may be just one of the few things they receive. We're particularly concerned about people that are in adult family homes that have low support needs, and that they would lose not only their care, but where they live. People in supported living that have low support needs that, again, just need that little bit, somebody to come in maybe to take them grocery shopping once a week, or to make sure their home is clean, again, manage their medications. And, these are folks often that do pretty well with just that little bit of extra support. And we know that some of them don't have families. So if you pull that rug out, we wonder who will take up the slack. And then we worry about people being homeless, going into more higher cost institutional level of care, ending up in the hospital, and any number of other things. So that has not happened yet. It's the governor's suggestion. What we are suggesting is that you talk to your legislators, especially if they are on the money committees that are making the budget, and tell them, don't change eligibility for long-term care services and tell them why. Don't put that in the budget. And I think we have to make sure our voices are loud and clear on that, so that does not come to pass. We're hearing from other states that they're doing this in other states. So it's not just a Washington problem, but other states, we're seeing that they've already made those kind of decisions where they're cutting. So we need to be aware, and we need to get our advocacy boots on and make sure that we're heard and that we're not just passed over. And sometimes people will say, well, those are the people at the lowest support level. But again, these folks can really, it can be just the thing that holds them together. So, and are there any other questions about any of the bills or any bills that you want me to talk more about? You can go and peruse them and see what else. There was a lot of bills that they'll shrink down after tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I think the last that we have on our agenda this morning is Sean.
This is Sean. Before I get to my last piece, I'm going to show you again a video about legislative advocacy tips me and my SAIL co-worker Jessica Renner did last year, but it still applies now.
I needed to be helpful for people. Can people see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. We'll see.
We can see the screen, John. It's
I know it's not.
It's still circling.
Well, we might have to do that next week. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it goes.
Hi, I'm.
Oh.
Sean Latham, the Policy Coordinator for Self-Advocates in Leadership.
And I'm Jessica Renner from Self Advocates in Leadership.
We want to thank everyone for taking your time out today to join us for Advocacy Days. We're here to talk to you about how to become a trusted resource for legislators on issues affecting your life. Even though your elected officials represent you, they can't do this very well if they don't know what you want. We want to encourage you to contact your legislators throughout session, but especially this week, about the issues that matter to you.
That's right. With so many topics for legislators to learn about, your knowledge of developmental disabilities helps them to do their job. You are the expert in telling your story and how it relates to decisions they are making. Here are some tips to help you make the most impact. Your time with legislators, staff, or aides is short, and your message should be too. When you communicate, sum up what the issue is and why it's important to you. Have a specific request related to a bill or budget item. Attack the problem, not the person. Follow up with a thank you. By doing this, you greatly increase your credibility and strengthen your legislative relationships. Bottom line, stick to what you know, which is your life, and how the issue affects you.
Here are some ways that you can reach out to your legislators. You can email them and their legislative assistant about your priorities. You can contact them through the legislative hotline phone number, which is 1-800-562-6000, and ask to leave a message for them. You can also share your opinion on a particular bill by using the hotline. We also encourage you to request either an in-person meeting with your legislators or a meeting with them over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Please reach out to the legislative assistant of the legislator to request a meeting. You can watch the legislature at work on TVW, either on your TV, if you have the channel, or online at tvw.org. Another way you can participate is by signing up to testify at legislative hearings. For each hearing, you can sign up for the individual bills as pro, meaning you are for the bill, con, meaning you are against the bill, or other if you have concerns with the bill you generally like.
Let me now take you through the process using the Washington State Legislative website that can be found at leg.wi.gov. On the website under the menu, click on the menu item that states Bills, Meetings, and Session. From there, scroll down to the section titled Upcoming Committee Meetings and click on the link titled Sign into a Committee Meeting. Next, choose if you are testifying in a House hearing or testifying in a Senate hearing. We all have the choice to testify in person, testify by video remotely, or we can submit written testimony or just state what our position is on the bill.
After you pick one of the options, you will be taken to the form to register. You will need to fill out your position, your name, your email, your address, your phone number, and your organization, if you are representing one. It also asks you if you will testify on a panel or not. If you are testifying on a panel, it will ask you to fill in the names of the other panelists. The other box to make note of is the pronunciation box. If you want your name said right, you can sound it out in that box. Please check the box "I'm not a robot" at the end of the form, and then it's time to hit Submit Registration. Once you submit your registration, you will receive an email from a committee staff email address. Please read this email carefully and add the meeting to your desired calendar using the links in the email. From there, make sure you are ready to testify.
Don't forget about social media. A lot of legislators have accounts on Facebook and Twitter where you can comment or watch live stream chats and virtual town halls.
It's so important to stay informed and involved. Participate in virtual advocacy days, sign up for the ARC of Washington's action alerts, get updates at arcwa.org, and follow on Facebook. Connect with local parent and self-advocate groups. And remember, change is made by those who show up.
This is Sean Latham again. I hope you are having a great day today and you learned a lot. This week we focused on protecting families by making sure we preserve the services and programs they need to support their loved ones. 78% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities on state services receive support from a family member, either a parent or a relative, of which 56.5% are adults. Our one-pager reads, "It is estimated that over 2,000 individuals with I/DD who are age 40 or older live with aging parents, many of whom are managing their own health challenges. At the same time, families provide this care with limited formal supports. Individuals on the Basic Plus waiver use an average of just $1,096 per month in Medicaid waiver services and $143 a month on the individual and family services waiver, a modest investment that allows families to continue providing care at home and prevents more costly residential placements. To maintain this family-based system, adequate and stable supports are essential, both to help families continue caregiving today and to ensure residential options are available when families can no longer provide care. What do we need to do to help families succeed? Families need to make sure they have reliable child care and after-school programs. Families need to make sure employment and meaningful day services are protected. We must have respite services for families. Families need to make sure our direct care workforce are well paid and well trained. Families need timely, easy to use services when families need them. Families need clear information and support to help navigate our complex systems and programs, and families need future planning assistance as we see family members age. We do not want to see any loss to critical services through eligibility changes. We do not want to see reductions in already a limited support system, and we do not want to see cuts to provider through rate cuts that will hurt families and their loved ones, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We all must stand up and tell our legislators, support our families, do not cut our core critical services. As we advocate for our favorite bills to get out of their house of origin, I wanted to tell you that you can visit the legislative website and see what bills are coming up for a vote on the floor. You can just go to leg.wa.gov. And please check out the TVW website to see the House and Senate in action at tvw.org. Hearings are going on all day, so please watch the hearings that interest you. With that, I will end by saying, for more information about the issues you heard about today, we are going to post this week's one-pager in the chat, and please see the ARC's bills of interest for additional information. Thank you to our speakers today, and thank you to my fellow MCs Ann and Emily. With that, I will just remind you that change is made by those who show up and take action. Thank you.
And please do the survey. If there's anything, I forgot to have that.
That's okay. So there's two ways. You can do the poll that popped up on the screen, or you can use the two links that are in the chat box. The links in the chat box, there's one in English and one in Spanish. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming.